Yeah, let us start. Okay, no one else joining. So how many of you are aware of servlets? Do you know servlets implementation? Okay, no knowledge. Fine. Okay, let me give you one simple example on servlet. Okay, servlets we use for implementing web application components, similar to your Spring MVC only. From J to W, we have servlets concepts. So if you have any form, right? If you have any form data, consider you are building a web application, and for web application we will have multiple forms and URLs, multiple designs, everything. So if you have a form, to read the form data we implement a servlet class. Server side we implement a servlet class. Server side we implement a servlet class. This servlet class we need to deploy into Tomcat. Servlet classes we will run on Tomcat server. Will run on Tomcat. So when we deploy our application, right, the Tomcat container will read your servlet class and it will instantiate it. It will create object for your servlet. Servlet class objects will be created by Tomcat. What Tomcat will do? First step, it will read web.xml file. There is a web.xml configuration file we will create in servlets. It will read web.xml file, and as a second step, Tomcat container will create object for servlet. It will create object for your servlet class, because without this object, whoever submit the data from the form, right, this form data you cannot able to read. If you want to read the form data, your servlet object will be initialized first. It should be initialized first. Okay, so servlet object creation will be done by Tomcat. Once creating your servlet object, what it will do, it will wait for the user request. Whoever submit the form, that user data only it will read. Whoever submit the form, only that particular user data it will read. And apart from that, what it will do, after creation of object, it will call init method of servlet, init method of your servlet, init method of servlet. What is that init method? Init method is one of its lifecycle method. We call it as a lifecycle method. Lifecycle method. One of servlet's lifecycle method is init method. So once after object creation, it will call init method. Why this init method is for? If there are any initializations, if you required, if there are any initializations at the time of servlet object creation, if you need any initializations, it will call init method, and all that initializations you can do. When you do object creation of it, if you want to do any initializations after object creation using init method, you can do anything. Okay, and then it will wait for the user request. Whoever submits the data, it will read and it will process it using doGet method or doPost method. There is doGet and doPost HTTP methods. So the data will be read through get method or through post method. So using doGet or doPost, it will read data and it will do further operations. If you want to save it into database or whatever it is, right? Your servlet methods. If it is get method, doGet will execute. For post, doPost will execute. And there will be one init method. This is a lifecycle method. Once after object creation, once after your servlet object creation, your Tomcat will call this init method. Okay, so inside this init method, you can do any initialization operations which are required for doGet and doPost. For my doGet and doPost, I need a connection. Can I do that connection initializations? Yes, you can do connection initializations here. And I need to do logging. Can I do log initializations? Yes, you can do log initializations here. I want to initialize some transactions. Yes, initialize transactions here. Initialize your transactions. And I want to initialize something mail configurations. You can put that configurations here. All that initializations, if you want to do only one time, that one time stuff we will put here. Only one time it will execute after your object creation. Okay. all the initializations like connection initializations, log initializations, transactions, or whatever it is, email notifications or SMS notifications, the third party initializations. If you want to do, you can do everything here. Init method will execute only once in servlet live, which means whenever you start your container, when we click on start, Tomcat will read web.xml file of your application and it will create object of your servlet. Then it will call lifecycle init method. Then it will wait for the user request. Whoever submits the data will be executed from doGet or doPost. User request flow will execute through this doGet doPost. And when you stop your container, or when you shut down this, when you shut down Tomcat container, it will call one more method. We call it as, it will call destroy method. It will call destroy. Again, it's a lifecycle method, one of servlet lifecycle method. A destroy method will be called one of servlet method. So destroy method also we used to have in servlet. So in this destroy method, what we do is, we do all the cleanup operations. We have done initializations like connection initializations, log initializations, transaction initializations above, right? All that initializations, cleanup operations you need to handle here. Otherwise, your resources will be opened, unless the other servers are restarted. So connection close operations, all the close operations we do here. Close or clear operations, clearing your resources and all we do here. So if you want to do any initializations, we use init method. And if you want to do cleanup of that initializations at the time of server shutdown, we close them here. So until its lifetime, let's say you executed or you started your Tomcat server, everything is proper, and you are going to shut down this maybe next year. Until then, your application is live, so all the users will call doGet doPost. But when you shut down it, maybe next year, when you call the shutdown method, what it will do, whatever initializations, connections you created, logs, transactions, all that initializations will be cleared so that your resources will be released. When again you restart, then again it will do the initializations. Until then, the resources will be cleaned and these resources will not block any request. So all the initializations we can execute through the lifecycle init method, and we can do cleanup operations through destroy method. Why I am telling about Tomcat here, as I am comparing my IOC also a container. Our container also having many capabilities. Okay, your IOC container also having many capabilities. If I try to compare with Tomcat, right, what's happening in Spring? In Spring, all our beans, not only controller, in Spring, right, you can have forms in Spring also. In MVC, we will have forms. You can have here your registration form, consider student registration form. You have a student registration form, and here you have few form fields: name, email, student address. So much data we are filling here and we are submitting it. When you submit this, when you submit your form in Spring, right, when you submit this form in Spring, when you submit this data in Spring, this data will be collected from your controller. The controller is your own controller. You don't need to implement any servlet. So servlet kind of behavior we can get in controller. Servlet kind of behavior you can get in controller. That controllers you can implement using Spring only. You need not to use servlets. If you use servlet, compulsory you need a Tomcat. If you use any servlet, then you should use a Tomcat. If you don't use any servlet, Tomcat is not necessary. Okay, so I have a simple controller here. This controller can read your data. So whatever do get do post you have here, right? Similarly, you can have multiple methods here to read data. You can have multiple methods like HTTP methods only. You can have read if you want to read data, right? Like do get do post. You can have multiple methods for get one method, for post one method. right? Post methods you can have, get methods you can have, put methods for update operations, delete, whatever it is, right? All the HTTP methods you can accommodate in your controller. Which controller? Your Spring Bean. As we said from the initial session, right? This can be a simple POSO class. Your POSO class is having that capability to read this data. What data? Form data. Through post, get, put, delete, or whatever method you can read it. Okay. And this controller can have lifecycle methods also. You can have init method here if you want to do any initializations, as I said, connection initializations, right? Any resource initializations if you want to do, you can do. And if you want to do cleanup operations, you can have a destroy method also here. So for your beans, they given this lifecycle methods also. If you want to do any initializations and cleanup operations, not only in controller, right? Not only in controller. If you compare with Tomcat, only for servlet it will provide this init and destroy. Whereas in Spring, not only for your controller, to implement complete application, right? Along with form and a controller, we will implement a service class also, which means a business class. We implement a business class, all the business operations we do here. Once we get the request, right, to get or post or put delete, further business operations we do here. So the request, once after getting here, the same request we used to forward to business. And for your business also, if you need any lifecycle methods, you can have that lifecycle init method here and lifecycle destroy method here. For every class, it may have its own responsibilities, and it may need some kind of third-party initializations, and it may need to do cleanup operations. Once if you do some kind of initialization that you are using for its lifetime, at the time of shutdown at least you need to clear it up. Otherwise, that resource will be go into infinite usage. Nobody will close it until unless the other servers shut down. Okay. So for business classes also, if you want to maintain any lifecycle methods, you can maintain. And from here, once after done with our business operations, we send it to a repository for database operations. We call it as DAO. We call it as DAO. So whatever your business methods you have here, okay, whatever business methods, business method 1, method 2, method 3. So whatever methods you have, you will get data to your business methods from controller. And from here, these methods will call your DAO, CRUD operation methods, based on the required CRUD operations. Either it can be a save or update, delete, or whatever it is. So the DAO will be called. Again, your DAO generally we know, right? We will have CRUD operations method here. Save, update, delete, such methods we will have here. So here also, if you need any initializations, like connection initialization, connection cleanup operations, you can do them here. Init and destroy operations you can do here using this init and destroy. For any of your POSO class, if you need initializations and cleanup operations, you can provide it. So the life cycles you can provide to your POSO classes. Your business POSO or controller or DAO or any utility class, whatever it is, you can provide this lifecycle methods to your Bean classes. So who is providing this lifecycles access? So as I said here, by reading web.xml file first, Tomcat will do initializations. Your Tomcat server, your Tomcat container will read web.xml and it will do servlet initializations. So here also, like Tomcat, we have IOC. We have our IOC container. We have our IOC container. Okay, we have our IOC container. That is a Java class application context. We have IOC container, something like your Tomcat. I'm comparing with Tomcat. Okay, application context. It's my IOC container. So this is my server. So this class, what it will do as a step 1, it will read Spring XML file. It will read Spring XML file. Okay, so it will read your Spring XML file first. So in XML file, what we will have all this POSO's configuration. The Spring XML file usually what we will configure. So in Spring XML file, we configure all our controllers here. If you consider this is your Spring XML, we configure all our controllers here, all the controllers, beans we configure here, business classes beans we configure here, right? All our DAOs we configure here. So your IOC will read this XML first. Your IOC will read Spring XML first. Then next it will create objects. Then next it will create objects. Create objects. Create objects of all your POJOs. Whatever POJOs you have in your Spring XML file, for all of that POJOs, it will create objects. All your POJOs, controller classes or DAOs or business, whatever you configure in Spring XML file, everything is a POJO. All that POJOs objects it will create. All your objects it will create. And in addition to that, as a third step, what it will do, in addition to that, after creation of object, it will do dependency injections. It will do dependency injections wherever it required. So wherever the dependency injection is required, it will do all the dependency injections. It will do all the dependency injections into dependent classes. It will do dependency injection into all your dependent classes. Into dependent classes means what? So these all are the different layers. DAO is dependent for business class. Business class is dependent for controller class. Otherwise, how we can execute this flow? When you want to call another class methods, definitely that class is dependency for your class. Okay. So here I want to call M1, M2, M3 methods of business class. So your business class is dependent to controller class. And your business wants to call DAO class save, update, delete methods for doing CRUD operations. So definitely DAO is dependent to your business class. So not only creating objects, once after creation of object, it will do dependency injections into dependent classes. So whatever dependency you have, all that dependency injections it will do. But we don't have that feature here if you compare. Your Tomcat is not capable to do dependency injection. It can be able to create objects, but it cannot able to do dependency injection. So without dependency injection, if you implement something in Tomcat, as we don't have, without dependency injection, if you create your application using servlets and Tomcat, your application classes will be tightly coupled. Tightly coupled meaning, using servlets, if you implement the complete MVC class like controller, business, DAO, here if you implement, okay, here if you implement, consider other classes also like business, DAO. So tightly coupled layers will be created in servlets. That means in future, if you want to change your DAO implementation, if you remove this class, if you remove this class in servlets, what will happen? Immediately will get errors in business. If business gets any errors, your controller also will get any errors, right? And your test cases also will get many errors. So that one class modification or one class deletion, if you want to add one more new class in place of this DAO class, if you remove it, immediately you will get many errors here. You will get errors here, and you will get errors here, and all your test cases also will get many errors. Because all that classes are tightly coupled, we create directly DAO objects into business, business objects into controller. In the old style, we used to do that. Servlet will create your business class object, and business class will create DAO class objects. Why they should create? Because they don't have dependency injection support. They don't have dependency injection support. That's why they should compulsory create other class object to call that class methods. But we don't have that. But we don't have that dependency here. You need not to create objects of other classes here, as your IOC container is capable to do dependency injection. So if container is having this dependency injection, then your application layers will become loosely coupled. So controller never directly depend on business, business never directly depend on DAO. So if you do implementation in such a way, in future when modifications required, let's say client brought a new requirement, I want to change my database from SQL to NoSQL. So please discontinue the existing DAO and add new DAO. So what you can do without big modifications, right? Without big modifications, you can implement a new DAO. Since you add new DAO, that new DAO will be injected here into your business classes. In a simple example, if you want to tell me what is tightly coupled, if you build a car, if you build a car with multiple tires, like car usually will have 4 tires. If you build that tires directly by welding it without having nuts and bolts, if you weld it, what's happen? If some tire gets damaged, you need to do what? You need to throw complete car aside and you need to buy a new car, as because everything is fixed, permanently fixed. It doesn't have any nuts and bolts to remove that particular car tire to add a new tire. But if a car comes with nuts and bolts, if I get one tire punctured or one rim damaged, what I can do? I can simply remove that tire or rim and I can add my Stepney. New tire I can able to add, because tires are not tightly coupled with car. They are loosely coupled. We can able to remove the nuts and bolts and we can discontinue the old tire and we can add new tires, right? If they permanently fixed rims and tires, if you get, once tires got damaged, you need to throw complete car aside. Similar way here, when something one layer, if you want to change, you should able to change in a easy methodology. Okay, so because of dependency injection, you can easily remove one layer between, if you want to remove it and add new layer. So you can easily remove that layer so that it will not affect another layers directly. It will not affect another layers because of dependency injection. Using dependency injection, we can achieve that. And apart from this, right, dependency injection, as we can observe here, this is one great feature that added. As we don't have this feature before, they added this great feature. Because of this, our application is capable of loosely coupled layers. Our application layers will become loosely coupled. They don't directly depend on each other. And the fourth thing is, it can able to call lifecycle methods. It can manage lifecycle methods of your application. So lifecycle methods like init and destroy, you can have in your bean classes also. It can able to manage lifecycle methods. It can able to manage lifecycle methods of your bean classes or pozo classes. You can have lifecycle methods if you want, until unless you need, you really not need to, it is not really mandatory to add your lifecycle methods. But if you have any such initializations and cleanup operations, if you want to do, right, across your pozo classes, you can have this init method and destroy methods. Your IOC is able to manage your lifecycle methods also. So when this init will call, when you start your IOC container, the lifecycle init method, not only init method, when you start it first, it will read your file, it will create objects, it will do the dependency injection. Then next it will call your lifecycle init method. When you start your application, when you start your IOC container particularly, it will call init methods first, all your init methods. Units of controllers, units of business, units of DAO. When you call shutdown on your IOC, it will call all the destroy methods. It will call all the destroy methods and it will do cleanup operations, so that all the resources will be released once after fixing bugs or adding new features. When you deploy or when you start your application, again it will reserve required resources. Till then it will clear off. Okay, so when you call shutdown only, it will call destroy methods. So your IOC is capable of creating objects and doing dependency injections, and it is capable to call lifecycle methods as well. That support also we have. Okay, this support also we have. Not only this, many other features we have. Okay, so these are the great features that we have from IOC container. Okay, these are the great features that we have from our IOC container. Okay, so when you want to implement a application without confusion, okay, without confusion, just fix that in your mind. Your class is a POSO class. So whatever implementation it is, right? Your controller classes are POSOs, your businesses are POSOs, and your DOs also POSOs. Okay, we write a simple plain Java class for any layer implementation, for any layer implementation. Okay, simple POSOs. Just you need to create POSOs and you need to configure into Spring XML file, and finally you need to load this XML into your IOC container. You need to configure your POSOs here and you need to load it into IOC. Your IOC will do, once after reading, it will do create object operations, and it will do dependency injections, and it will manage life cycles. Okay, so we know how to create object. We will go one by one. Okay, how to create object, how to do dependency injection, how to manage life cycles. Okay, so for this one I'll use Spring Core framework, Spring Core or Spring IOC, Spring Core framework I'll use. So for using Spring Core, right, use Spring Core jar file and Spring context jar file. Spring Core and Spring context. These two jars you need to use in your application. For what? For using IOC. Include these two jars in your project so that you can use IOC. Spring Core jar file and context jar file. That two jars would be enough. Okay, let me create a workspace for our regular practice. 1722. Okay, so you can create a Java project, Java project. So the first example, IOC bean. We'll learn about bean here first. Bean or POSO. Create a Java project. JRE is unbound. Okay, let me use alternate JRE from my installation. Let me use JDK 9.
Sir, I'm using JDK 8. It is okay? Is it okay?
Oh, sorry.
I'm using JDK 8.
Yeah, it should be fine.
8. Is it okay for?
Yeah. So basically, this Spring core version came around in the 2005, 6. That time itself, the first initial version. Just a minute. Just a minute. I guess just a minute. I'm getting an office call. Just a minute. Yeah, I'm back. So yeah, create a Java project. Okay, create a Java project. Add your Spring dependencies. As I said, the 2 jar files must be enough. And as a framework, they have again dependencies. Okay, so Spring Core and Advanced. These 2 jar files should be enough. Yeah, this is Spring Core jar file and context jar file. So let me include core, context, and context support also, which is for context. And this these jar files are using commons logging internally. Okay, so it's their dependency jar, not ours. So framework also is a kind of save it. So what is your doubt? I'm new to this. I know how to create. So it's a simple. I said create a Java project. Go to file. So go to file, create new Java project. Go to project, choose a Java project. Okay, choose a Java project and name something. Name any name, right? And finish it. So you will get a Java project. Once getting Java project, go to build path, and I'll share the jar files. Okay, go to class path and add external jars. From here, you need to add your Spring jar files. I just added this 3-4 jar files. That's it. Excuse me. Okay. So now I'll create a simple poso class. Okay. Beans. Create a class. Hello poso. A simple class without having any other dependencies. I created a simple plain class. This is my simple hello poso class. And so this poso class object would be created by your IOC container system.out.println hello world. So this is my poso class, and this poso class object will be created by your IOC container. So just you need to create a XML file here, create a folder or a package, and create one XML file, any naming convention you can use. Okay, spring.xml. So in this XML file, you need to configure DTD first here. If you want to know the DTD, you can open your Spring Core jar file and you can copy DTD from there. Spring Core, uh, here Spring Core DTD. One of the jar file contains the DTD also. Spring Core meta NF. Go to Spring context. Spring schemas. Here we have multiple schemas. We can use these schemas when you want to use J2EE container. There is a context schema, J2EE schema. We'll talk about them in depth, okay? This one doesn't have. Spring core annotation converter. Package info. Overview. Yeah, I couldn't able to find, but yeah, definitely will get schemas here itself. So schemas and DTDs. We just need to copy that DTD into your XML file first. Okay, let me copy it from the existing source. Okay, just copy this DTD. DTD stands for doc type definition. This is for XML validation. In XML, we use some tags here, right? Spring will not allow our custom tags. You have to use only Spring tags. Who will validate the tags using DTD only? That will be validated. So bean tags and auto suggestions also you can see here. All these tags declarations are there in this DTD. Okay. So without DTD, if you try to load this XML, it may not able to parse it. XMLs need to be parsed by XML parsers. So they will parse against DTD or schema. Means the validations will be handled with the DTD or schema. Yeah. Now you can configure your hello world bean here. Bean ID. You can put any ID here. But same ID you should not repeat once again. Same ID you should not repeat once again. Beans dot hello world. So this is my bean class and this is my bean ID. Just you need to load this Spring XML into your IOC container. Okay. So create one application package, load XML into IOC container. Application class, main method, application context, reference equal to new class path XML application context. Pass your XML class path. My XML is there in resources folder. This is my resources package, and in that package, my XML file name is spring.xml.
Name should be changed spring.xml.
spring.xml. This is not the problem with this one. This is problem with ID. ID is unable to quickly refresh this. Something happened to my ID. Or else no problem at all. Okay, so we configured our XML and we are loading it through class path XML application context. It should not be error. It's an ID problem. Let me switch back to my old ID. There I'll import this project. Java project, same name, one IOC bean new package beans quickly a controller hello world bean class with constructor and system.out.println just to see how this object is creating and configure it in XML file. Resources, your XML file name can be anything, okay? If you want to make it spring.xml or any other name you can use, and you just need to configure your hello world bean here. Bean id h class name beans dot hello world, and finally load it. Load it into IOC container. Application context. Okay. So first you need to add jar files, right? Otherwise that classes, inbuilt classes are not available to you. So add your classes, application context, AP equal to new class path, XML application context. XML application context. Load your XML here so that your IOC could able to read your Spring XML and it can able to initialize. It can able to initialize your Spring Bean class. Run it. So the first two tasks are, one, it should read, and second, it should able to create object. Your IOC container should read. So this read is happening. Okay. Your IOC container is able to read, right? It is reading your XML from your class path. Then it is creating object. Hello world. It is reading and it is creating object. It is able to create your objects for all your poses. Then as a next thing it will do the dependency injection. If your poser have any dependencies, it will do dependency injection. Okay, hello world with some name I want to print. Private string name. This name is my dependency. Name is my dependency. Name is dependency here. You can inject this dependency. For that you need a setter method. This name I want, so this name is dependency, I can inject it. From where you can inject it? This name you can inject from XML file. So my dependency is this name. This name is dependency. You can inject that here using setter method. To call your setter method, right? This is my setter method to pass my dependency. To call that setter method, you need to use property tag. The property setter method name only you should pass here without set the remaining name. And the value you should pass here. What value? The name value. I want to pass name. So Ravi, I'm leaving here. So now this Ravi name injected here successfully. Print this and check the name. Dependency. Which dependency injecting here? Dependency injecting, and print that name also here in hello world. Okay, in constructor we can't. Yeah, we are injecting it through setter method. Dependency injecting. See whether it is injecting or not. First, reading your XML file and created object. Hello world. Your class object it is created. Then dependency injecting the value Ravi it injected using setter method. So I did called property, but internally it called setter method. And to that setter method, whatever name I have given here, that same names applied here. Your container is capable to load your XML, creating object. As a third step, it will do dependency injection. It will do dependency injections. Finally, it can manage lifecycle methods also. Okay, it can able to manage life cycles if you have any lifecycle methods here. Okay, lifecycle methods we implement from initializing bean for init method. Okay, init method will be executed after your setter method. For initializing bean, here I am implementing a interface. I said before your classes are posers. Now your poser implementing from some other API. Is it really mandatory? No, actually without this also you can do that. Okay. So this is one programmatic approach. Later we discuss about it. Okay. Public void here hello world initialization method. Hello init method. Any name for your init method. Do init operations here. Do all init operations. And you can have cleanup operations. For cleanup operations, hello destroy. You can have hello init for initializations. Hello destroy for cleanup operations. Do all clear operations or cleanup operations. So this one you can treat it as init, and this one can be destroy. And you need to configure them here as a init method and destroy method. So your init method name hello init, and your destroy method name is hello destroy. You need to just configure these methods here. Okay, you need to configure these methods here, and now try to start your server. As a first step, it will create your object. It will create your poser class object by reading XML. It will create your poser object. Then next to it will do dependency injection. So dependency injection is happening. And then finally it will call lifecycle methods. Lifecycle method is what init method. Do all init operations. So as I configured init method here, my class can have a init method. This is my init method. So it is calling init method for doing all initialization. If you want to call destroy method, you need to call externally shutdown. Until unless you call shutdown, it will not shut down your application. So for shutdown, right, instead of using application context, we use configurable application context. There we have one close method for shutdown your application. So when you call close, that means it will treat it as shutdown. So your object created, dependency injection happened, init method executed. When I call close, which means shutdown, it is internally calling all clear operations, cleanup operations. So your IOC container is capable to read all your poses. It can create objects and it can do the dependency injection and it can manage life cycles also. So these are the main 4 steps that IOC will do. Apart from it, it have many other features. Okay, we have many other important features that we go one by one, but on very high level, right? Your IOC is a container. It is capable to do all this, which are earlier containers like Tomcat or WebLogic, how they used to do servlets or EJBs initializations, right? Here, as you doesn't require any EJBs or servlets, plain Java classes you can write. All your plain classes can be managed by your IOC container. This is how you can implement a complete application using simple poses, and using your IOC you can start it. Okay, so from Monday, we'll go very deep into these topics. Okay, so as you understand what is IOC, we'll go one by one all the features very in detail. When it comes to dependency injection, what all types we have, in how many ways we can do this. Okay, and life cycles, how many approaches we have, and there are other implementations also. Okay, that we go.
Sir, could you please send us jar file and doc content?
Yeah. Today I'll send. Yesterday I didn't share it. Yeah. So as you all shared your mail IDs, right? I'll share it today.
Okay. Is there class tomorrow?
These examples. No, we have classes in weekdays only.
Okay.
Okay. You can during weekend you can practice all the weekday sessions. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, in any doubt so far, is this clear?
Yes,
what is
clear
IOC
now.
and how it is doing it? This simple. I mean, this much simple implementing Spring application without confusion. We implement simple posers and we will achieve everything. A web application, full stack application, we can implement. Okay. Yeah. Sure, guys. So,
Naveen, one question actually. Yeah, basically, how the memory management will handle by the IOC container?
What is that? Dependency?
No, memory management. Because while booting up the application, we are creating all the objects, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So if all the beans are created, then we are injecting into the services, right? But how the management will memory objects, tool objects will be created and displayed.
Okay. So in the previous session also, I told you that creation of objects is happening by your IOC container at the time of loading. Since at the time of loading, it is creating all the objects. Consider your application is having, some 100 classes. So all 100 beans I have here. Okay, all beans are singletons. Basically, they are singletons. Okay, singleton means entire application one object. Singleton means entire application one object. So here, if I have 100 classes, 100 classes are combinations of your controllers, business, and DO classes. Consider 33 controllers, 33 business, and 33 DO classes you have. All the classes initialization will be happened at the time of loading your XML itself. After loading your XML, it will read and it will initialize all the classes. Until you shut down, your classes or your objects will be alive. If you keep your application for a year or any number of days, right, your objects are not going to clear from your JVM or from your RAM. That object still alive.
Okay.
Okay, as they are singletons, it should not destroy them after
so
your
whenever
request.
we boot up the application on the release or patch, then it will automatically destroys, and again
it will automatically do the garbage collection, and again it will initialize it.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
And this is recommended. Basically, lazy passion also we have. Okay, Bean factory can initialize lazily all the objects, but what is the use? If it is lazy initialization, the user, whoever requests first, he should wait for the object initialization. So,
Okay.
so it is recommended to initialize everything at the time of loading time itself.
For
Coming
example,
to,
if the workflow has a minimum number of users, they usually not visit that particular
correct,
flow, right?
correct,
So,
correct. So this context will come in our microservices, especially when we are using microservices infrastructure like AWS or Azure. Consider you have your 100 classes, and if you create all these 100 classes objects, your AWS server or whatever instance, that should be always on. If you don't use this for 100 days also, your objects need to be maintained in AWS, so they'll charge. I
yes.
mean, if your server is on, so in such scenarios, we will not create objects at the time of startup application. Okay, in place of using here in this flow, in place of using these controllers, right? We have simple way of implementation of controllers. Instead of that, we can go with AWS Lambda or Azure functions. If you
Okay.
implement this controller as a function, what will happen? Until unless first user request, or until unless user request, it will not create any object. You are a user, like Surendra came here for my application and he is registering it. So when Surendra hits my application, it will create all the 100 objects and it will serve his purpose. It will serve his purpose. Then it will shut down everything.
Okay. On auto scale.
Consider throughout the 100 days, you have hardly getting 50 students. Only whenever that student request, for that request only, it will create all the objects. Again, it will shut down. That's how functions will work. Only for
Okay.
that request, cloud will charge.
Got you. Yeah.
And it will clear all the memory for other users. That's how cloud will manage the memory, and it will utilize for other operations for other users. Okay, in cloud case, especially while you are using functions, Azure functions or Lambda functions, that is the case. Otherwise, right, if it is monolithic application and you are running in a WebLogic or WebSphere somewhere, you are running as a bulk application for lifetime, you want to maintain these objects, then we will not use Azure functions or Lambda functions. We directly use simple controllers from the Spring side, and all these objects will be initialized at the time of application startup itself, and they will be in live until you shut down your application.
Yeah. Thank you. No. Now I got the clarity. Thank you.
Sure. So that's all I have. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I am done for today. We'll meet Monday, same time, 8:30. Okay. So thank you all.
Can you give me your number?
Yeah, I'm sharing 918266248. Yeah. So you got the payment related details and everything through the email. So just do the payments there and send them screenshots, and you will get the link from Monday. Okay.
Yeah.
If not, if you don't see any link, direct this demo link itself. Okay.
Oh,
If you don't
okay.
direct the link. Yeah. Or if you have any
Yeah.
confusion, to ping me in WhatsApp. I'll be available on this number.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So thanks all. That's all. We will meet again on Monday. Till then, happy weekend. Bye.